Welcome to Informatica Cloud 101 on-demand course. In this module, we are going to discuss relationship and integration. We are going to talk mainly about ID fields and how you map these fields. After completing this module, you will be able to understand the use of an external ID, set up external ID fields in Salesforce, create data synchronization tasks that upsert data in Salesforce using an external ID, and use the Related Objects feature to relate migrated or synchronized objects in Salesforce. So I will start with the basics, and I'm going to cover database primary keys first, so that you would know how Salesforce external ID fields work. As you would probably know, database primary key fields are used to uniquely identify each record in a table. A primary key field can be a normal attribute that is guaranteed to be unique. For example, if you have a table where every record has a social security number, you could use that because you know it is going to be unique for every person. Alternatively, primary key field can be generated by the database management system. For example, a global unique identifier, or GUID in Microsoft SQL Server. Also, primary keys may consist of a single attribute or field, or multiple attributes in combination. Here are two tables from a relational database, the Accounts and Contacts table. Each table has a primary key field. For the Accounts table, it is the Account ID field, and for the Contacts table, it is the Contact ID field. Now you also have a foreign key, and this is a field that matches a primary key from another table. Foreign keys are used to cross-reference tables, as well as maintain your master detail and one-to-many relationships. So within Salesforce especially, we know that accounts and contacts have a one-to-many relationship. You have your account in Salesforce, and then beneath that account, you can have many contacts tied to that one account. Now let us see how the data is structured to support the relationship. As you can see here, we have the Accounts table and Contacts table with a number of rows in each. Notice that each table has an ID column. This column is a primary key for each object and holds the unique identifier for each record. Then in the Contacts table, there is also a column called Account ID. This is a foreign key field for the contact object, which ties it to the account. So if you look at the first contact, Mary Smith, you will notice that the value in the Account ID field matches a value in the ID field for the Tyco account. Similarly, the next contact has a different account ID, which associates John Black with the Honeywell account. So that is how the foreign key relationship works. A Salesforce ID is a unique key assigned to every record in Salesforce, and this ID is used to identify records in Salesforce. There are two versions of the Salesforce ID, a 15-character and an 18-character version. The Salesforce ID is system-generated when a record is created in Salesforce. This means you cannot change it. The Salesforce ID are not only used to identify records within Salesforce, but they're also used to link records. For example, a contact has an ID as well as Account ID field. This Account ID field contains the ID of the related account, thereby linking the contact to the correct account. If you're used to working with Salesforce primarily via the user interface, you may have never noticed or seen a Salesforce ID. When you're viewing a detailed record in Salesforce, the Salesforce ID for the record displays at the end of the URL in the browser's address bar. Note that this also works in reverse. This means that you can paste a Salesforce ID at the end of the Salesforce URL to bring up the detail page for that record. You can also view Salesforce IDs by exporting the data from Salesforce and viewing it in a different location, like a CSV file. This can be done using Informatica Cloud or a tool like the Apex Data Loader. So if you export to a flat file, for example, you would be able to see the Salesforce ID in the ID column. In order to integrate data with a system outside of Salesforce, Salesforce provides the external ID. This external ID allows you to store a unique record identifier from the system outside of Salesforce. Salesforce objects do not have external ID fields by default. So you must add these fields as custom field for all objects that you will be synchronizing with external systems. Also, when you create the custom field, you must select the external ID attribute. Note that you can create up to 7 external ID fields per Salesforce object. Typically, you would create multiple external ID fields if you're integrating your Salesforce data with multiple external systems. So you would have 1 external ID field per external system. Also note that by default, the value in an external ID field is not unique. It is recommended that you also select the unique property if you do not want to allow duplicate external ID values. The external ID field is used for the Upsert operation, allowing you to add new records and update existing records from system outside of Salesforce. I will now demonstrate how to create an external ID field in Salesforce. In this demo, we will set up an external ID field on 2 Salesforce objects that are account and contact. Log in to salesforce.com using the developer credentials. In the upper right corner of the screen, click Setup. Under the Build option, click Customize and select Accounts, Fields. Click New in the Account, Custom Fields and Relationship section. For the field data type, select Text and click Next. In the Field Label field, enter Account External ID, and in the Length field, enter 50. Select the External ID Property checkbox, click Next, and click Next, and click Save. Now to create External ID Custom field on the Contact object, under the Build option, click Customize, select Contacts, Fields. Click New in the Contact Custom Fields and Relationship section. For the field data type, select Text and click Next. In the Field Label field, enter Contact External ID, and in the Length field, enter 50. Select the External ID Property checkbox. Click Next, and click Next, and click Save. This concludes the demo. The type of operation you use in your data synchronization task will determine which ID field you will need to map. So if your data synchronization task is performing an update or delete operation, then you must map the Salesforce ID in the field mapping. If you are performing an Upsert operation, you must map to an external ID field. Now let us walk through a scenario that demonstrates how the external ID and Upsert operations are used. On the left side of the screen, I have an in-house mainframe-based billing system. I would like to take account data in this system and use it to populate Salesforce. Then on an ongoing basis, I would like to synchronize data between the two systems. To begin, I have exported a list of accounts from the billing system. One record in this list is the Acme company. As you can see, my file contains various information for the Acme company, including address and phone information, as well as account ID for this company in the billing system. The account ID uniquely identifies this company in this system. So when I use Informatica Cloud to upsert the data for the first time, the Acme record is added as an account in Salesforce. Notice that the account ID or primary key in my billing system gets stored in the external ID field in the Salesforce account record. This provides a link between the records in the two systems. Now changes may be made to the record in the billing system. In this case, let us say that someone has gone in and added a fax number for the Acme company. When the data synchronization task with the Upsert operation runs again, the record is found in Salesforce using the external ID. Now because the record already exists, it is updated and the fax number is added. I will now demonstrate how to create a data synchronization task using the Upsert operation, map the source primary key field to the Salesforce external ID field, and verify the results. In this demo, we will create a data synchronization task using the Upsert operation, map the source primary key field to the Salesforce external ID field, and verify the results. Log in to the Informatica Intelligent Cloud Services and select the Data Integration Service. The home page appears. To create a new asset, on the navigation pane, click New. We will create a new synchronization task. Select Synchronization Task option and click the Create button. A 6-step synchronization task wizard appears. In the task name field, enter the task name and retain the default location. From the Task Operation drop-down, select Upsert and click Next. Specify source information. To configure the source, from the Connection drop-down, select the local CSV file connection. From the Source Object drop-down, select Account Data.csv. Click the Formatting Options button to make sure that comma is selected in the delimiter field, and click Next. From the Target Connection drop-down, select the Salesforce connection, and from the Target Object drop-down, select Account. Click Next twice. In the Field Mapping step, map the fields by dragging them from the source to the target. To ensure that the mapping has no errors, click Validate Mapping button. To save and close the Synchronization Task wizard, click Finish. To run the synchronization task, click Run. To monitor the task, click My Jobs. We see that the number of success rows match the number of rows in the source file. This concludes the demo. There is one more topic in this module that is related to what we have been talking about, and that is the Related Objects feature. So if you have relationships defined in your source data, then the Related Objects feature allows you to maintain those relationships as you move that data into Salesforce. For example, say you have a contact that works for a company in your source data. When you move it into Salesforce, the Related Objects feature will translate that into a Salesforce relationship. To illustrate, let's continue on with the scenario we looked at previously. In addition to synchronizing account information from our billing system into Salesforce, we also need to synchronize contact data. As an example, here is a contact, Bob. Bob is associated with the Acme account. You will notice that Bob has a contact ID, which is 1. And he also has an account ID, which is 25. This is the account ID of the Acme company. This is how Bob is linked back to Acme in my billing system. When I use Informatica Cloud to upsert the contact data, I can use the Related Objects feature to ensure that the relationship in my external system is translated into a relationship in Salesforce. A related object is an object that's related to another object based on a relationship defined in Salesforce. The data synchronization service uses the external ID to relate objects. Informatica Cloud is able to locate the related record using the external ID and swap in the correct Salesforce ID. You can use this feature if the relationship between objects exists in your source data. If the relationship does not exist in your source data and you want to create it when you synchronize the data into Salesforce, then there are other features you can use, such as a lookup. We will discuss about lookups in later module. I will now demonstrate how to upsert a list of contacts into Salesforce and use a Related Objects feature to tie the contacts to the appropriate accounts. In this demo, we will see how to use the Related Objects button to link contacts to accounts in Salesforce. To do so, we will create a synchronization task. Log into the Informatica Intelligent Cloud Services and select Data Integration Service. To create a new asset, click New on the navigation pane and select Synchronization Task option. Click the Create button. In the Task Name field, enter the task name and retain the default location. From the Task Operation drop-down, select Upsert and click Next. From the Source Connection drop-down, select the local CSV file connection. To select the source object, from the Source Object drop-down, select contactdata.csv and click Next. From the Target Connection drop-down, select the Salesforce connection, and from the Target Object drop-down, select Contact. Click Next. And click Next. And map the fields by dragging them from Source to Target. To ensure that mapping has no errors, click Validate Mapping. Now click the Related Objects button and select Account External ID. From the Account Object External ID drop-down, click OK. The Save and Close the Synchronization Task Wizard, click Finish. The Synchronization Task asset is displayed on the navigation pane, and task details are displayed on the page as shown on the screen. To run the synchronization task, click Run. To view data in Salesforce, log into the Salesforce Developer org. Click on the Contacts tab and view new account records that were inserted. Observe the accounts that the contacts are associated with. This concludes the demo. There are a few labs for this module. The first lab walks you through setting up external ID fields in Salesforce. In the second lab, you will be inserting some account data into your Salesforce developer account. Then the third lab walks you through using the Related Objects feature to get the contact data upserted and tied to their accounts. This concludes Module 5. This module showed you how to set up external IDs in Salesforce, create a data synchronization task that upserts data in Salesforce, using an external ID field, and associate objects in Salesforce using the Related Objects feature.